just had a lengthy discussion at lunch about getting the Senate appropriations process back to some semblance of normalcy. I think Senator Collins and Senator Murray have taken us in the right direction. This is the first time in 5 years that we've gotten all the bills out of committee. That's how broken we used to be. Most of them, if not all of them, were passed on largely bipartisan basis. Now it's up to the Senate to get them across the floor this week or next week. And this is the only way to avoid what my members despise the most, which is an omnibus and the inability to offer amendments. And so at least we've got to start now, and we need to finish the job.
Well, this week and last week for that matter too, students all across the country were going back to school and learning government 101, learning about checks and balances and the way that our Constitution and our system of government works. And that lesson is one that the Biden administration could benefit from, because if you look at just the last few weeks, all the things that they've done that have tried to go around and bypass Congress, starting with the student loan bailout program that the president has tried to create sort of out of thin air without any support from Congress. More recently, the administration now is trying to end hunting and archery programs in schools in this country, again, without any support from Congress, including, I would say, those programs have bipartisan support from, in Congress. And then finally, trying to cancel oil and gas leases in ANWR, something that was approved by Congress back in 2017. Again, no authority, no consultation with Congress, completely bypassing the Article I branch of the government. These overreaches and grabs by this administration are indicative of a president and his team who don't understand that these policies are policies that need the support and approval of the American people and their representatives in Congress. And the one thing I can tell you is that the Republicans here in the Senate will continue to fight for energy security in this country and do everything that we can to stop these crazy policies. We're going to do that on student loans. We're going to do that on the hunting and archery program. We're going to do that on ANWR and energy leases across this country that this president has decided, for some reason, I guess in deference to his far-left political base, try and cancel. American people need these energy projects for our economic security and for our national security.
Joe Biden and the Democrats are intensifying their outrageous attacks on American energy, and the American public are paying the price. With inflation as it is, inflation lives and dies with the cost of energy. And what's happening with this Biden policy on energy driving up the costs, it's crushing people's hopes. It's stealing their dreams. It doesn't have to be this way. Gasoline prices across the country are now approaching $4 a gallon again. We have abundant energy in the United States, but Joe Biden is strangling energy, attacking it. He's on a warpath against American energy. He did it in Alaska, in the Gulf of Mexico, and now in Wyoming. Look, Wyoming is American energy breadbasket, and he is trying to lock up over 1 million acres of land, energy-rich land, in Wyoming. This is a direct attack on American workers and on anybody who ever flips a light switch or fills up a gas tank. They continue to go after American energy. And why is he continuing this stranglehold? Well, it's because he continues to cave in to the far left climate elitists that run that party. We need to do better. We can do better. Their agenda, to me, is the most self-destructive economic agenda that I've ever seen for this country. And that's why Americans are so mad. They're mad because they're paying over $900 a month more this year than when Biden came into office, just to keep up with rising prices. Americans make energy cleaner than anywhere else in the world, and we have such an abundance of it. It's reliable here in the United States. That's what Republicans are committed to, releasing all that American energy. That's the way we make life more affordable for the American people.
Okay, folks, you can't make this stuff up. Okay, just recently, Secretary of Energy Granholm went out on a 4-day road trip in her electric vehicle to draw attention to the billions of dollars that the Greenies in the White House are pouring into their electric vehicle fantasy. So let's talk a little bit about this road trip. The predictable problem that they had on the road trip, there were not enough EV chargers. Okay, so again, you can't make this stuff up. So what did Granholm's staff do? They got in their gas-powered car and they sped ahead to get in line to save spots with their gas-powered vehicle at those electric chargers. And it was so bad in one location because the gas-powered car was blocking all of the other electric vehicles that had to charge. It was a really hot day. A family actually called the police on them. They had a baby in their car that was crying, again, really hot day. And here's a gas-powered car, Granholm staff, trying to save them a spot so they could just slip in line and get their EV charged. Okay, so folks, if the Biden administration can't make it from Charlotte to Memphis without an incident, then how do we expect that all of our non-tactical military fleet is going to get transitioned by the year 2030 without having big issues? Okay, so let's think about that. This greenie push out there for those electric vehicles, it is not realistic. We are living in an absurd world in the Joe Biden administration. So let's call it what it is, folks. It is a road to nowhere.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to reinforce briefly what the leader said about the appropriations process. I'm on the Appropriations Committee. I think it bears noting that for 5 years we have not passed bills off the Senate floor. We've had omnibuses, we've had continuing resolutions, and none of those options are good for us. So I think that finally Leader Schumer has realized that this is the way, the desire of the members is to have input into the appropriations process. We passed all 12 bills out of committee. We also want to do whatever we can to avoid a shutdown or to avoid a huge omnibus bill like we had at the end of last year. Both of those options are very undesirable, and they're not fair to the country, and they're not fair to the tax-paying citizens. And lastly, an open amendment process. This is something that the members learned during the NDAA, and those two chairmen, or the chairman and ranking member, put together a process that made sure that everybody had a voice, everybody had a chance to have an amendment, and that's what the Appropriations Committee is aiming for this time. We have a process put forward. We're going to use it, and I encourage all members to use it, and I know that all of our voices want to be heard for everybody. Thank you.
Well, Senator Ernst talked about the Secretary of Energy's challenges she had on her green energy tour most recently, and I think it demonstrates just how unrealistic the Democrats in this administration's green hallucination really is. You look at the state like Montana. You know, we get a lot of windshield time in Montana, traveling long distances. It's farmers, it's ranchers, it's truckers, or just folks going back and forth to work, or a veteran going to a VA facility. Because we only have one charging station in Montana per 1,700 square miles. But the Biden administration has clearly launched a war on Made in America energy. Senator Barrasso talked about the cancellation of leases, oil and gas in ANWR. By the way, that's 11 billion barrels of oil, shutting down and draining the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the lowest levels we've had now since the 1980s, and then mandating over half of our vehicles on the market have to be EVs within 10 years. And sadly, the American people are paying the price at the pump. This administration's energy policy could probably be summed up in one clear sentence: replacing American-made oil and gas with Chinese batteries.
Andrew?
Regarding the impeachment inquiry that the House is partaking in, what are your thoughts on that?
Are you talking about the general House situation?
Yes, the House
Yeah,
representatives.
well, look, we got our hands full here trying to get through the appropriations process and not have an omnibus. And I don't have any advice to give to the House. They've got a totally different set of challenges than we do. And so I think the best advice for the Senate is to do our job, and we'll see how this plays out later.
Leader McConnell. Chairman McCall of the House Foreign Affairs Committee said that the hold on military promotions here in the Senate is paralyzing the Pentagon. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I've said earlier, I think holding these non-policy making career military who can't be involved in politics at all is a mistake. And we continue to work on that, and I hope at some point we can get it cleared.
Leader McConnell.
Leader McConnell.
Do you
believe
it was a good idea for Speaker McCarthy to open that impeachment inquiry into the president today?
The impeachment inquiry. The impeachment inquiry?
Speaker McCarthy just opened on
Do you
that
support
like
it?
2 hours ago. Do you support that as a good idea?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The impeachment inquiry.
The impeachment inquiry that Speaker McCarthy announced into President Biden.
Yeah, look, I'm going to say it again. I don't think Leader McCarthy, Speaker McCarthy, needs any advice from the Senate on how to run the House.
Leader McConnell.